Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my lecture on the introduction to modular XML documents. So you may recall that we're doing some of the topics in a different order in the current semester, and that's true for the topic that we're going to be dealing with in the current week. We are going to be talking about how to modularize the content of an XML document. This is something we do in publishing all the time. Okay, and in fact, the examples that we're going to use are publishing oriented examples. All right. What's the typical situation? The example that we're going to use is we have the content for a book, right? And we're going to put the chapters into separate files. This is the thing that people do pretty frequently when they are editing their book. They don't want to be changing all the content all the time. They want a manageable size file to edit, and so they have sort of a master file that includes all the subfiles, and they get that working, and then they go and they only have to work with one of the subfiles at a time. So we're going to take that kind of approach. Okay. Now, this can be done with two capabilities of XML. All right. The original way that people did this, and quite a few people still do it this way, is that they use external parsed general entities. So these are the same as, well, not the same as, but they are related to the entities that we use, for instance, instead of the ampersand, when we code ampersand AMP semicolon, or the less than sign ampersand LT semicolon. These are capabilities where we can define kind of a macro ourselves, and we can say, when you see this character string in the XML text, substitute what's in a file instead. Okay. This is a capability of XML that is implemented in the DTD language. Okay. And people use it today, even people who don't use DTDs any longer to express the schema for their document. They do that with the W3 XML schema language. But there was a time when we had the W3C XML schema language, but we didn't have a replacement yet for this modular capabilities that we got from the entities that are part of the DTD language. So people would use a combination of DTDs just to be able to copy in the modular text that they had. And then they would also use the W3 schema language to enforce the rules of the application. We have a new capability called XInclude that's a little bit older than the W3C schema language, which is the modern way to include files. Okay. For a while, XInclude had kind of spotty implementation. Today, it has a very strong implementation across a wide set of available XML tools. And what's happening is that slowly, people are moving from modularizing their text using the DTDs and entities to modularizing their text using XInclude. Now, I want you to be able to work with both of them because it's entirely possible that you could inherit a document that is modularized using DTDs and entities, okay? Or perhaps, you want to give that a try just to see what it's like. So what I'm going to do here is in this unit, we're going to cover how to modularize a document using the capabilities in the DTD, and then how to modularize the document using the capabilities of XInclude. There are no direct capabilities of the W3C schema language that has to do with including modular content, because at the point where they reached that, they realized that combining the modularization features into the DTD language had been a mistake. Okay, so they didn't want to combine it into the new schema language. They made it a separate capability altogether. So the only implication of all this for you in going through the content that I have for the week is that my 2 tutorials are based on the DTD language, and we've only covered that briefly, so I'm going to give you a review of it, okay? First of all, let's take a look at the text that we're going to be using, okay? It's called monolithicbook.xml. So we're going to open that. And you'll see that this is the text of a book. Let me squeeze that over just a little bit. This is the text of a book. It's a pretend book. Okay? The root element is book. It starts off with some metadata type sub-elements. It has some content here called rights, which has the copyright related rights. Okay. Then it has a chapter. Okay. It doesn't have real text in the paragraphs, so it's got this kind of phony lorem ipsum text. Okay. So we go through one chapter, and then a chapter 2, and then a chapter 3, and then a chapter, 3 chapters only, 4 paragraphs in each, okay? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn how to modularize content. We don't really care what the content says as long as we're able to get the modularization to behave the way we would like to. Now, I just want to introduce the DTD for this because that's the only schema that we're going to have for this week, and we haven't put a lot of time in on it, so I want to give you a bit of a refresher of the overview that we did for the DTD. So the DTD associated with this monolithic book.xml is book.dtd. And let's find that. That's over here. And I just want to pause and say that we're working with an Oxygen XML project. Okay? Now, this is the first time that I think this has been officially introduced in the series of tutorials that make up the course. And in the beginning of the first of the tutorials that I have you watch, we go through how to create an Oxygen XML project and what the features are. Okay, but right now we have an Oxygen XML project. In it, it has a folder called My Files, and that has all the files that are going to be used in the course of this week inside of it, okay? And you have some of these starter files yourself available to you when you go to do your work. So here's the DTD, and it's pretty straightforward. We always have an element declaration for the root element, and that's book. And book is a sequence of title, author, publisher, writes, all required, all occur one time, plus one or more occurrences of chapter. Pretty straightforward. Title, author, rights, and publisher are #PC data, which is to say plain old XML text, no sub-elements. Okay. Chapter, okay, is its content model is chapter number and one or more paragraphs. So this is a sequence again. Okay. Chapter number is just plain old PC data. I realize it's a number, but I didn't constrain it any more than that. And then paragraphs are just plain old PC data too. A lot of times, as you recall from the work we did on schemas, in paragraphs you want to allow mixed content with sub-elements, but we didn't really feel the need to do that in order to demonstrate the modularization using the capabilities that go with the DTD. So just go back to monolithic book. If I click on the checkmark icon, you'll see that the document is valid. So we applied the DTD to this. Okay. Now, another thing that we're going to see when we're in the first of the tutorials is that DTDs can have an internal part that's internal to the XML document. Okay? Well, why would you want to do that? I mean, don't you want the DTD to always be the same? Well, a lot of times you do. Okay? And in fact, if the DTD only held the schema, I would argue that you would always want the DTD to be the same, in which case you'd want it in an external file because you would want to be able to have multiple instances of the document type of book. All right. But because they included these modularization features in the DTD language, it's common to see somebody have a DTD with an internal subset inside the document. So we're going to learn that you can extend your DTD by having a square bracket opening and a square bracket closing, and we can include some parts of the DTD that have to do with modularization. Okay, so this is where your modularization code is going to go. And when you really think of it, would you really want to put the modularization things into the DTD proper, into the external subset, as they call it? And usually not. I mean, if it's some kind of common text that goes across a whole series of documents. For instance, the current version of our organizational name. Oh yeah, you might want that up in this external book.dtd. But everything that has, when we're pointing to the chapters from the current book and all that kind of stuff, it's all stuff that has to do with the current document. It's all going to go in here in this part that is called the internal subset. Okay, so this traditional part that I showed you a minute ago is called the external subset of the DTD. This is called the internal subset. Okay, now what we're going to be doing in the course of our work this week, when we're using the DTD features to do modularization, we're going to use this trick here. Okay. When we're using the XInclude features to do the modularization, we're just not going to have this here at all. We're going to go right back to the DTD. I apologize for the fact that I don't have a version of the document that you're going to look at that has a W3C XML schema. And maybe someday I will, but I don't right now. Okay. So both of the things that we're going to do are going to have the schema language is going to be the DTD, something that you don't have a lot of experience with, but I've got confidence that you'll be able to follow along. And then we're going to have two versions of this copy in the modular content. The one that I just showed you that uses features from the DTD language, and then one that uses XInclude. So to just give you a little look ahead, okay, the one that uses the schema language and entities is going to look kind of like this. Okay, here's that internal subset. Okay, and here we're including the text files. Okay, the modular things. And then the one that uses XInclude, it's going to have more classic XML elements to pull the text into the document. Okay, so they're going to be different in that way. But they both are going to use the DTD to constrain the content because, well, that's what they used when I wrote the material. So, without further ado, I'm going to sign off here and let you get going on the tutorials that show you how to do it. This week, you're going to be able to do exactly the example that I do. This is the kind of thing where you just want to practice the doing. Okay, it's all what I call plumbing of XML. It's all a matter of getting things into the right file and hooking files up to each other the right way. There's no benefit in having you do an example that's different from the one that I do. So your assignments are going to be just the same as the work that I do in the tutorial videos. And what I would say would work well, I know usually works well for me, is to play it through one time just to get the sense of it. And if you feel that you need to play it through a second time while you're doing it, feel free to do it. All's fair. Okay, that's it. I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.